The first time humans felt real rest, not sleep, rest. For most of human history, sleep did not mean rest. Closing the eyes was not the same as letting go. Even in darkness, the body listened. Breath stayed shallow. Muscles remained ready. The mind never fully released the world around it. What humans experienced for thousands of years was not rest. It was recovery while staying alert. Real rest came much later. It arrived quietly, when the body no longer needed to listen for danger, when stillness no longer meant risk, and when letting go became possible for the first time. This is not a story about sleep. It is the story of the first moment. The human body truly stopped holding itself together. For early humans, night was not a pause. It was a threshold. Light faded, but danger did not. Shadows grew longer, but awareness sharpened. The dark did not invite surrender. It demanded attention. Even when exhaustion pressed heavily on the body, sleep came cautiously. The eyes closed, but the senses stayed open. A distant sound could become a warning. A sudden silence could feel worse. The body learned to hover between states, never fully awake, never fully gone. This was not a failure of rest. It was intelligence. To survive, the human nervous system became vigilant by design. Sleep occurred in fragments, moments taken when fatigue outweighed fear, moments light enough to abandon instantly. The body did not trust the night. It learned that danger often arrived quietly. For a long time, humans slept, but they did not rest. Rest requires safety, and safety was rare. The open world offered no boundaries. The ground was shared with unknown movement. The night carried intentions that could not be seen. Even lying down required readiness. The spine remained braced. The jaw stayed tight. Breathing stayed prepared. Stillness felt exposed. To relax fully would have been a mistake. Then slowly, almost without notice, conditions began to change. Fire altered the meaning of night, not as comfort, not as ritual, but as signal. Fire pushed darkness outward. It created distance. The edge of the world moved away from the body. Light gathered people together. Sound returned to the night. Crackling replaced silence. A steady presence replaced uncertainty. Around fire, the body experienced something unfamiliar. The dark was no longer everywhere. It existed beyond the glow, not within it. This mattered. The nervous system responds to edges. Fire created one. The body did not fully relax, but it softened. The ground became a place to lie down, not only a surface to move across. Sleep lengthened, not deeply at first, but noticeably. Fire also changed how humans gathered. People slept closer. Bodies formed shapes that communicated protection. Warmth was shared. Breath synchronized. Someone stayed awake. Not always the same person, not always intentionally, but wakefulness became distributed. The burden of vigilance no longer rested on one nervous system. Rest entered the group before it entered the individual. Trust was the turning point. Within these circles of light and bodies, the human nervous system encountered a new signal. Stillness did not always precede harm. Silence did not always mean danger. The body hesitated, then slowly it responded. Muscles released tension they had never fully abandoned before. Breathing lengthened, the chest softened, the jaw unclenched. Sleep stopped being endurance and began to resemble surrender. This was not comfort as we understand it now. It was relief. Shelter deepened the change. Caves, rock overhangs, later simple structures. The world gained shape. Wind stayed outside. Rain became distant. The body recognized enclosure. Boundaries matter to the nervous system. Edges communicate safety. Inside these spaces, night became familiar, not harmless, but predictable. And predictability allows the body to loosen its grip. The spine leaned into stone. The ground carried weight. For the first time, the body was supported, not just socially, but physically. Rest is not unconsciousness. Rest is permission. Permission for the body to stop bracing. Permission for the mind to stop scanning. That permission was not given once. It was earned, night after night, without interruption. Morning after morning of survival, the body remembered. Memory formed not as thought, but as sensation, a growing expectation. With time, rest lasted longer. Sleep deepened. Dreams lengthened. The mind wandered without urgency. The body learned that it could go somewhere else and return safely. This mattered because when vigilance loosens, repair begins. Muscles rebuild. Systems reset. The body uses rest to heal itself, and the mind uses it to organize experience. Rest allowed the human mind to expand, not suddenly, but steadily. Thoughts could stretch, memories could settle, patterns could form. Without constant interruption, the brain gained continuity. This continuity shaped awareness. Waking life changed as well. Pauses emerged, moments of stillness without immediate purpose. Sitting, leaning, watching. The body learned that not every moment demanded action. Energy could be conserved. Attention could soften. Life became more than reaction. These pauses were not laziness. They were intelligence. They allowed balance. Within these rhythms, the nervous system adapted. From constant readiness to selective alertness. From fear-driven motion to grounded presence. Rest did not remove hardship. It did not erase danger. But it allowed recovery. And recovery allowed continuity. Groups that rested better, survived better. They healed faster. They coordinated more smoothly. They trusted each other more deeply. Rest strengthened bonds. Around the fire, after movement slowed, humans lingered. They watched embers dim. They listened to familiar breathing. They shared silence without tension. This mattered, because silence, once feared, became neutral. Sometimes even comforting. This was new. In these moments, the body was not preparing. It was simply present. The mind drifted. Stories formed. Not spoken yet, but sensed. Images passed through awareness. Dreams began before sleep. This state between wakefulness and rest became familiar. The body learned how to enter it, not forcefully, but gently. Over generations, this became expectation. Rest was no longer rare. It became part of being human. The nervous system recalibrated. What once demanded vigilance now allowed release. Stillness became acceptable. Darkness became tolerable. The body learned that it did not need to hold itself together at all times. This was the beginning, not the end. The first time humans felt real rest was not a single night. It was a threshold crossed slowly. Once crossed, the body did not forget. Rest became something the body remembered, even when conditions were imperfect. It became a reference point, a baseline, and from this baseline, human life expanded. As rest became familiar, it began to reshape how humans moved through the world. The body no longer lived only in reaction. It carried a quiet memory of safety. This memory changed how waking hours felt. Movement slowed when it could. Effort became measured. Stillness no longer felt dangerous. The human body learned that it did not need to remain tense in order to survive. This was not comfort. It was regulation. The nervous system, once locked into readiness, began to balance itself, alert when needed, quiet when allowed. This balance did not eliminate threat, but it reduced constant strain. With rest, the body learned rhythm. Periods of effort followed by release, activity followed by pause. Night no longer erased the day. It completed it. Sleep became deeper, not because danger vanished, but because the body trusted its environment enough to let go. This trust transformed the inner world. Dreams grew longer. They became less fragmented. The mind moved freely through memory and imagination. Rest allowed the brain to wander without urgency. Ideas formed without pressure. Connections appeared without force. In this space, creativity emerged, not as performance, but as natural thought. Around shared fires, humans lingered after movement ceased. They did not immediately collapse into sleep. They rested together while awake, watching light fade, listening to familiar sounds. This quiet presence mattered. It taught the body that rest was not only something that happened unconsciously. It could happen while aware. Stillness itself became safe. The nervous system learned that being motionless did not automatically invite danger. This was a profound shift. Earlier, stillness had meant vulnerability. Now, stillness meant recovery. The body stopped bracing against itself. Breathing slowed. The heart settled. Muscles softened. The internal sense of time changed. Moments lengthened. Urgency dissolved. Rest reshaped perception. It altered how the world was felt. Sounds softened. Darkness deepened without threat. The body learned how to exist without constant evaluation. This changed social life as well. Groups that rested well communicated more easily. Tension did not dominate interaction. Presence replaced readiness. Trust deepened. When the body is rested, the mind becomes available. Available to notice, available to connect, available to imagine. These qualities strengthened human bonds. Around the fire, stories began to form, not because they were needed, but because space allowed them. Rest created room, room for memory, room for meaning. In these quiet hours, humans did not only recover, they reflected. They noticed patterns in the world, in the sky, in animals, in seasons. Rest allowed attention to widen. The body, no longer consumed by vigilance, could afford curiosity. This mattered because curiosity shapes survival differently than fear. Fear reacts. Curiosity understands. With rest, understanding grew. Over generations, this understanding reshaped behavior. Shelters improved, routines stabilized, movement followed predictable paths. The environment became readable. Predictability reinforced safety. Safety reinforced rest. The cycle deepened. Rest became embedded not only in night, but in daily life. Midday pauses appeared naturally, moments where effort softened. The body leaned instead of stood. Eyes rested without closing. These pauses were not scheduled. They were felt. The body knew when release was possible. This knowing became instinct. The nervous system refined itself. Stress no longer dominated baseline experience. Alertness became selective. Energy was preserved. Life became sustainable. This shift did not make humans passive. It made them precise. Energy was spent where it mattered. Movement became efficient. The body learned economy. Rest made effort meaningful. Effort made rest deserved. The two began to support each other. As rest stabilized, the human body changed subtly. Posture softened. Breathing patterns deepened. The internal sense of threat diminished. Not eliminated, but contextualized. The body no longer interpreted every unknown as immediate danger. This allowed patience. Patience allowed planning. Planning allowed coordination. Rest quietly shaped intelligence. It did not announce itself, but it underpinned everything. As communities grew more stable, rest became inherited. Children born into safer environments learned relaxation earlier. Their nervous systems developed differently. They carried less baseline tension. This mattered across generations. Rest became culture, not named, but lived. Lullabies emerged naturally. Soft sounds used not to entertain, but to regulate. The human voice learned how to calm. Low, slow, predictable. Sound became a tool for safety. This deepened rest. The body responded to familiar tones. Breathing synchronized. Sleep arrived gently. These practices were not taught explicitly. They were felt and repeated. Rest became woven into daily existence. As rest deepened, human awareness expanded beyond survival. Time slowed internally. The future became imaginable. The past became meaningful. Rest allowed reflection. Reflection allowed continuity. Humans no longer existed only in the present moment of threat. They began to exist across time. Memory strengthened, anticipation formed, meaning emerged. Rest allowed identity. Identity allowed culture. Culture allowed cooperation. All of this rested on one quiet foundation: the ability to let go, the ability to stop holding oneself together. The body, once shaped by constant readiness, learned release, and it remembered. Even when danger returned, the memory of rest remained. It became something the body sought again, a reference point, a signal of what was possible. This memory did not disappear when circumstances changed. It lived beneath behavior, beneath thought, beneath language. Even now, long after the world transformed, the body still carries this ancient knowledge, the knowledge of what rest feels like: warmth without threat, stillness without danger, silence without fear. The nervous system still responds to these signals: soft light, enclosure, familiar presence, predictable sound. These cues speak directly to something old, something learned slowly over generations. The first time humans felt real rest was not dramatic. It was subtle, almost unnoticed, but it changed everything. It allowed healing. It allowed thought. It allowed connection. It allowed imagination. It allowed the body to exist without constant defense. That shift never reversed. Once the body learned rest, it carried it forward. Through migration, through hardship, through change, rest became part of what it meant to be human, not because the world became safe, but because humans learned how to create safety together, through structure, through rhythm, through shared presence. Rest was never guaranteed, but it was possible, and that possibility reshaped humanity. The body no longer needed to remain tight to survive. It could soften and still endure. This is the legacy of that first rest, a quiet inheritance, passed through bodies, not words, felt before it was understood, and still felt now, whenever the body finally releases its grip, whenever breathing deepens without effort, whenever stillness arrives without fear. That moment echoes the first time. The first time humans felt real rest and remembered it.